Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's actually a pleasure to be in this webinar, Building Resiliency, the new opportunity. As we all know, we are in unprecedented times with uncertainties. And I think a webinar series like this will allow us to all come together, share different perspectives, so that we can actually come out stronger than ever before. So thank you to Nafis and the team at Y-Space and City of Markham and Stephanie's team, and really, I think Innovation York and York University as well. I think a series like this is very useful to actually share knowledge and keep up the good work, guys. So I guess my intention today is to focus on early stage startups perspective, as well as investment within the early stage. That's kind of where my background is. So I'm going to just start off with our background. So I'm as Serena mentioned, I'm the general partner at Good News Ventures. We are a early stage VC fund based in Toronto. Actually, we are based in the Whitespace office in Markham. We are engineers turned entrepreneurs, and after exiting our businesses, we were actually angel investors with York Angel Investors, who is another client of Whitespace. That's where I met my partners, Marat, Mona, and as angels, Marat and Mona. And as angels, we've actually invested in over 40 companies. About 3 years ago, we thought, why not launch a fund? And that's where we are. To date, we invested in 25 companies. We have successfully exited in 2 of them. And we are hoping to invest in possibly about 8 to 10 companies in the next 6 to 12 months. So we are a seed and a pre-seed investors. Our check sizes are about 100 to 200,000. We are sector agnostic, but focus on ICT with high growth potentials. Usually it's B2B or B2B2C, SaaS, recurring revenue. It can be enterprise or SMBs. We've done some hardware, but software has to be a major component of it. So with that said, I want to just give you, as an entrepreneur's background, entrepreneurship is an extremely difficult thing to do. Taking big risks, balancing personal commitment, dealing with stress. And after all this, only a small percentage of us succeed. So as the greatest entrepreneur, Steve Jobs, will say, it is so difficult that one really has to be extremely passionate. Otherwise, you can easily give up when things get tougher. So it's harder to persevere if you're not passionate about it. So this is entrepreneurship by itself. Now, let's look at with COVID. Now we got additional challenges: health, unemployment, kids, homeschooling, and physical distancing, and lack of social gathering. And according to, I'll just quote from Cambridge Dictionary, resilience is the ability to be happy, successful again after something difficult or bad has happened. So I got this image from the Harvard University article that talked about dealing with resiliency on the home front. The article actually talks about resilience is not something we are born with. It is built over time as the experience we have interact with our individual unique makeups. So that's why we all respond to stress like COVID very differently. So think of resilience as a seesaw or a balance scale, right? So where negative experience tipped the scale towards the bad outcomes and the positive experience tipped towards the good outcome. So this article further talks about how one can unload negative side by relieving stress, avoid things that makes us stress, right? Or building different life skills to help us to be positive, right? So there are various resources that can talk about building those skills. I'm actually not an expert on it, but I just thought I would just mention this to everyone, because as all of us are going through this challenging time, we should look to resources where we can build those skills so that we can be resilient through this time. So since our audience are pretty much kind of entrepreneurs or people that are tied to the startup ecosystem, so I think, let me kind of go through the next slide. to kind of talk about how can we innovate as entrepreneurs and really ride through this crisis and come out with stronger than ever before. So as an entrepreneur, actually, I started my first company in 1996. So I had the misfortune of going through the dot-com crash as well as the financial crisis, all in the same startup. I guess a lot of the young entrepreneurs, they probably have not gone through any of those crises. Certainly the situation now is very different, right? But I just wanted to share that as a smaller organization, or if you're a startup, um, based on our experience, we were using those times as get into a survival mode. And the year following that happened to be the best year to that point. So what I wanted to just, kind of focus on is the survival, right? First and foremost is the health and well-being of the founders, the families, the employees, right? And most startups are small enough, and being technology based, they're able to adapt to remote working, right? Able to do customer presentations virtually. And I think what we are seeing, the biggest challenge is the cash flow. And how do you survive during this time? And to be quite honest, I think we are fortunate as Canadians. I'm an immigrant to Canada. Not only do we have free healthcare and education, but we get all government support, right, to provide the right financial support during extraordinary times, right? Especially like, we've been talking to our companies over the past few months, and the current situation affects every single company, whether on a personal level or their business model. So we actually have two spectrums. So we have, on one side, we have companies that focus on travel and event space, and they're directly impacted by this. And we spend time talking to our founders who have to go through downsizing their team and working with their employee morale and so forth. And then we have on the other side, we have companies that do last mile delivery for retailers. They probably have one of their best last few months. Mobile mechanic, or they have a company that does provide software for restaurants to aggregate different delivery platforms. Right. But one thing that's common to all these startups is that they use this opportunity to innovate. And especially the ones, for example, in the travel space, they're able to take their technology and kind of modify it to fit into, for example, a retail business. Again, not necessarily waiting for the travel industry to come back. So which I thought was great to see. But I think it's very interesting to see how the entrepreneurs and the founders have kind of going into a survival mode, which is kind of very difficult thing to do. Hopefully, you're surrounded with advisors and mentors that can help you along as well. Now, when we talk about innovation, so innovation can be something new or something within your own business model. So we actually encourage our founders to be operationally efficient. It's so important. I think this may be a great opportunity to be operationally efficient. So take advantage of the current situation of remote working, right? So you already have savings on office space and others, if possible, if there's an opportunity there. And then going online, there's a significant cost savings as well. Now there's a savings on travel, then ability to do demos and presentations online. And hopefully you can divert those investments into product enhancement, customer acquisitions, spending time with your customers and learning more about what the customers are. I was actually on a session in Collision where the former CEO of Cisco, John Chambers, was talking about this is an opportunity. I mean, he's gone through the dot-com crisis and financial crisis, and he talked about how important it is to spend time with your customers. Try and sell what your customers need, not necessarily what they don't need. And these are the times you can build those relationships with those customers who will come out to be your champion down the line as well. So I think, as a small company, I think it's easier to make changes, adapt quickly. And I think, it's a perfect time for innovation. So use your existing products if you want to, innovate within, or you want to look at new markets or opportunity pivot. So we will strongly suggest, and we have many of our companies have actually undergoing this innovation. And I think it's very important that if you're in the startup space to really look into it. So now keeping with the theme for this session. So what are the new opportunities for growth? So we need to kind of embrace the new norms, right? There's going to be some new norm, especially like when it comes to remote working, online transactions, online communication. I mean, some of these things have always existed. But I think we're probably seeing more of a social conscience, like so being part of a community, supporting local businesses. So this is kind of potentially this would be a new norm, right? Um, when we talk to other VCs, like even ourselves, there might be more deeper diligence that are required during, when we are making decisions, but there is a lot of investments waiting for companies that are innovating. There are a number of VC funds, even in Canada and Toronto, that have raised significant external capital, but they're looking to deploy them. And I think there is a sense of a lot of liquidity in the market as well, maybe because of the government support, maybe because of the low interest rate. So I think it's important for people to kind of use this opportunity to innovate and really seek the right opportunity to get some additional funding. So with that said, let me just focus on talk about some of the sectors. So these are some of the, there is a number of other areas that innovation is happening, and areas that are great opportunities that are coming up. But we just thought these are some of the few that we've seen in the last little while. Healthcare. Now, this is something our fund has actually stayed away because of the whole concept of selling healthcare solutions or software into the hospital network has always been challenging, whether especially in Canada, but in the US is maybe a lot easier. So I think we believe now more than ever the healthcare industry will be open to adapting new technology. Telehealth. I mean, I got a call with my doctor, and it was such a pleasant experience. I don't have to go and wait for an hour and a half, and probably get some other things while just waiting in the waiting room. So the whole communication and diagnostic tools, and just purely incorporating some of this software for their own efficiency. Communications and collaborations with the patients and the healthcare professionals. I mean, these are a lot of startups have come in trying to disrupt this space, but it has always been harder to get some traction. I think that what this COVID has enabled us to do is for those healthcare organizations to be open-minded, and they have been forced to go into these, to adapt these technologies. The other area of challenge is the path to get approval and navigate through the regulatory hurdles for drug discovery. I mean, this is something that many investors have stayed away. And I think lately this has got a lot of spotlight because we are looking for the vaccine for COVID. And I think the process, the hope is that the process has been streamlined to embrace new innovations. I think there are now, I've been talking to other colleagues or other co-investors. Now there's an emphasis on this space, investment going into technologies like AI and maybe leveraging quantum in trying to help with the drug discovery. It's always been a difficult area to comprehend, but now I think there's a sense of urgency to invest and look into this space. So I think healthcare is something that is prime for innovations and disruptions. There were so many technologies that were available, but I think it's, if you ever look into start or pivot, I think it's an area that we will encourage exploring further. Workplace. Now, workplace is going to be very different. So I think many corporations have already started saying this is going to be the new norm going forward. Now, whether it's a remote working, collaborations, actually, you can now have access to talents globally, right? I know many companies have already adapted this, especially in the startup space, but a lot of the larger corporations, were very slow to adapt. But funny enough, every single organization's got in very quickly to, expedited their process to adapt this very quickly. So I think what this means as is that also there's going to be more of a focus now on employee morale and mental health and wellness. So I think being online, I can see sometimes I'm on my device for like 9 hours straight, and I feel like so terrible. I think I think it's time for innovations on how do, I think, for example, the corporations are now going to have to focus on how do we keep our employees morale high, create some sort of a team environment for them to collaborate and work effectively, regardless of where they are. And I think as individuals, what this has presented is many of us are now going and figuring out what are our priorities. I think there is now a sense of need of how do we balance our work and life together. And that will mean maybe we have to be flexible hours. It has to be very convenient. And I think, moving forward, this is going to have to be a differentiator for businesses to attract really good talent. I think that's an area that corporates will start thinking about. How do we create an environment for employees to work effectively, flexible hours, and balance their personal and their business or their career needs as well. So I think the workplace is something that's going to change, but only time will tell what's going to happen. But it's an area that if you're looking at to focus on as well. Education, another industry. Oh man, we see so many edtech companies, and it is always very difficult to invest because they will have to then go and sell into the school boards and the schools. The processes were always extremely difficult. Maybe it's because of the government or maybe because of the union. I mean, the adoption within the education system, especially in Ontario and Canada, has been slower. They had to go through a private school first to get some traction to go in. But I think this is prime for a disruption. I think current conditions had sped up online classes, enabling a lot of innovations, including personalized content delivery. So I think we have technologies for teachers to evaluate individual capabilities and skill set and provide content personalized to them and have better evaluation tools. These are areas that we had all these innovation and technology, but never got adapted. But I think more and more, the parents, the teachers, the students, we are forced to embrace it. So I think this is a place that a lot of innovations are going to happen. And I think most importantly, I think now education now can become accessible and available regardless of the geographic locations. I mean, you can go and get a Harvard degree anywhere and any place, and which is amazing. So whether it's the developing countries or any parts of the world now have access to quality education. I think that's something that we should be all proud of. And hopefully we can be part of a generation where we can help facilitate that. Retail. Now, prior to COVID, I think retail has already getting started to become disrupted. I mean, whether it's Amazon and e-commerce, but many of the brick and mortar companies were kind of on the life support. I think many of them, you probably heard many of them fail. It just got accelerated. So they were already going to get, they're already facing different challenges anyway. But having said that, I think right now there's a great opportunity to innovate within e-commerce. For example, last mile delivery. One of our portfolio company, Envoy, what they do is they work with retailers, and when they ask for same day shipping, they actually crowdsource the last mile delivery, crowdsource different drivers, and they find the best route to deliver those very cost effectively as well. And they're really doing well. And that's an area for a disruption. Talk about automation. And again, now consumers are looking for convenience. Whether it's ensuring that the whole customer experience is now a focus for them as well. So I think the retail has an option, there's an opportunity to innovate even more rather than one big player kind of takes it all. I think we're seeing a lot of flip side of Amazon kind of companies. Like, we have a few companies that are actually going against Amazon concept to capture their space as well. Like, for example, we have a company that does digital sampling that's had a great traction in the last little while as well. So I think retail is an area that is already getting disrupted, but I think there's continued to be more focus on it. Consumers are now okay to order things online, groceries online. So I think that is what has stopped them, not necessarily technology or businesses, is the consumers. Now that consumers have got used to that, I think is an area to focus on as well. Digital transformation. I think digital transformation has been slowly happening last little while, and that's why we saw a faster adoption of like a lot of enterprise SaaS companies coming into fruition. But having said that, there are industries that are slow to adapt, and legal is one of them. I think, I'm just taking a couple of examples, but legal is something now contracts can be signed online, and you can actually collaborate and share documents very effectively and really create efficiency within the legal, within the lawyers and the businesses or individuals. We actually have a legal tech company, Riley, now that's actually getting great traction within the lawyers because they are able to provide tools to collaborate with lawyers and their customers and really create efficiency for them. So I think the COVID what has happened is allow these in the legal space or the lawyers to adapt to this technologies quickly, whether getting notarized online. There's a significant number of innovations that can now happen. I know Nafis came from the legal zone in DMZ. I think we see that there's a lot more innovations a lot more startups are going to come in that space as well. Now, in terms of government, they've never moved to remote working this quickly, right? I mean, they moved on to remote working very quickly. My wife works at City of Richmond Hill. They moved with, it took them a long time to get to that concept, but when the COVID happened, they moved very remotely, very fast. And I think what that means is that a lot more, they're going to be a lot more open to digital innovation than ever before. And I think it also will help businesses that want to sell into the government, as they will actually be forced to streamline their procurement process, which has always been a barrier. I think startups have always found it difficult to sell to the government because of all these the hurdles and the RFPs that they have to go through. But now that within their own organization, they're now quickly adapting to new technologies, and they're forced to adapt to faster, quicker procurement processes. I think that's a great news for startups as well, if they want to sell into the government organizations. So I thought I'd just highlight some of the areas that we've seen some great opportunities. But again, we will probably have some question and answer session right after that. But I want to just talk a little bit more about maybe this may be helpful on how we look at opportunities when we look at startups or when we talk to entrepreneurs. And again, you can probably use this time to kind of see if it's relevant to you or not. We focus on three things: why you, why now, and why this. Why you is an extremely important thing. As I kind of mentioned earlier on, are you passionate, or are you and the founding team, do you have a big vision? Do you have a big, bold vision? And there's a founder market fit. So, someone from the same industry who has an experience that in their previous life or previous startup, whether it's a founder market fit. Timing is so important, because I think it's all about, has something changed, whether it's a regulatory or some new technology has emerged. For example, adoption of coming online, right? So everybody's now getting used to doing things online. So has something happened in that space? If you look back on Uber, Uber will not be possible if we didn't have smartphone or GPS. Airbnb came in at a time when there was a downturn, so they were able to quickly validate their business model because people were looking for cheaper alternative. Netflix will not be possible if we didn't have, high-speed broadband. So I think, look to, like, when you're innovating or whether within your own business or something new, look into whether they're, what's going on in the industry. And then why this? Is your solution better than others? Or is there enough of a moat? Moat can be a deep technology, you got a patent, or you got some certification or regulatory approval that takes a long time to have. So these are kind of the three areas. Certainly other things that come in terms of traction and so forth, but this is kind of the three areas that we always look at, when we want to invest in early stage startups. So I just thought I would just share that with you. And I guess as I'm wrapping up, this session, I wanted to just kind of touch on, what we think or we've seen from other entrepreneurs, other successful entrepreneurs. What are some of the key traits of those entrepreneurs that have really helped them? Okay, I've kind of mentioned this passion many times, but one thing with the passion and the entrepreneur is that you got to be very passionate about a problem you're solving. So that's why it's so critical. Like every single person talk about, you need to spend time with your customer, understand what their problems are and solve them. Maybe Steve Jobs may be the only one that we know of, or maybe one of few that kind of built something that knows what the customers need. But in majority of the time, you are within the customer, understanding what their problem and try and solve their problem, right? And again, as you work with your customers, you're gonna have to have all the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. Now, risk. As an entrepreneur or running a small business, you have to take significant risk, courage. And failure, you need to have failure. I think if you don't fail, you really don't, you can't really succeed. And failure is okay. And if possible, fail fast and pivot. One thing that an entrepreneurs need to have is to be optimistic. Certainly, you got to be a realist in some areas, but you really have to be optimist to make those work. Otherwise, it's easier to give up very quickly. And then something that we've always seen this is learning. Even us as a fund, we are a startup. We are learning, continuously learning, adapting, pivoting, and important to surround yourself with advisors and mentors and others that actually can provide different feedback and input, which you can actually, there'll be too many of those advisors. Also, you as an entrepreneur, have to figure out which makes sense and which doesn't. But always be curious and ask questions and learn as you go along. I think one area that is always underrated, I think, is network. I think maybe many of you know it, but reputation. I think the community overall, not just in Toronto and Canada, but globally, is extremely small. And the reputation is so important. Integrity. Candor. I think, say it as is. The best answer is yes. The next best answer is no. I know that as Canadian, we tend to be, try not to say it as is, but sometimes it's good to say it. Whether we could be completely wrong. Many times we actually will provide an advice. We could be completely wrong. But from our perspective and what we see, that is what it is, rather than kind of sugarcoating, or I keep doing this, and the founder might get a different perspective in terms of what they're doing. So always good to be direct, and the relationship. I think the relationships that you build will help, whether it's from fundraising to building the business to hiring the right talent. And overall, I think, we've now got into, we are in a stage that relationships are much more important than ever before. So this is kind of one last slide. I thought I'd just leave it. Courage is a resistance to fear, mastery of fear, but not the absence of fear. This is from Mark Twain. So with that, I kind of pause and hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, happy to answer as well.
Well, and that was incredibly insightful. Thank you for sharing your perspective on this whole thing. Let's open it up to Q&A, I guess. Feel free to drop questions into a chat and or unmute yourself and chime in. Maybe I'll kick it off. For some of these early stage kind of innovators, folks that are at home thinking of new ideas that they've come up with, any tips on how to find kind of the right support system or going through the process, how to go through that process?
Is it from the business side I'm talking about, like trying to get started?
I think more from the founder perspective, folks that are looking to pursue their ideas, how can they approach it and build the right kind of support system around them?
Yeah, so I must say, when just from my own personal experience, when we started our company in '96, no incubators, accelerators, nothing ever existed. So we were kind of had to, like, we were four founders. We were kind of the support system within us four. When we kind of would Google it up at that time, we'll have to go and read books and get that support. But one thing that I've been very bullish about the startup ecosystem and the entrepreneurs and innovation that's happening in Toronto, especially in the last 5 years, is the support system that the Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo, even Markham now, and even across Canada in Montreal and British Columbia as well, is the existence of incubators and accelerators. I know that some of them have gone through some challenges because of different funding and so forth. And I think Nafis, before this presentation, we're just talking about it. I'm a strong believer of those systems. I think Y Space is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs to come in, build a camaraderie, meet other founders, other employees who could potentially become team members or co-founders. And then you got access to advisors, mentors, investors who may have gone through the same experience or have experienced it through other startups. I think that is the key part of it. I think we are fortunate enough, both by whether it's government or university funded groups, there's a number of these programs that if you have not already been up in joining sessions like this as an example, or going to, hopefully when things get, move into normal, we will have a lot more of these events. And I realize that I'm able to meet more people when I meet in person. Certainly now is through Zoom and other virtual ways. But I think that is very important. Surrounding yourself with advisors or mentors or people that you can always tap into. And if not, in Toronto, like in Canada especially, we have so many of these programs that are available as entrepreneurs, and it may be a stepping stone. You go there, learn something, then they will introduce you to a whole bunch of other network of people that you can tap into. I think that would be a great way to build that. Now, on a personal side, if you have, whether it's your families or friends that are always available, I think it's now more than ever to nurture those relationships. I think, in my own opinion, it works for me, because I think that having that support system is, or somebody to bounce off ideas, is always great. So I think I think Y Space and Launch YU and the different programs City of Markham has are a perfect example to start with.